was not exactly born with the coming of the railroad, just as it hasn't died with its passing. But the Baltimore and Ohio did give the little settlement a name and a future. First, the community called itself New Baltimore, in honor of the railroad which came through in 1873. But learning that there was already a New Baltimore to the south, it pragmatically took its present name. For years it seemed that the trains would never stop their hustling and impatient roaring through town. Fed by farms and oil fields and factories, the trains came in ever-increasing number. In 1923, when North Baltimore celebrated its 50th birthday, the B&O alone was sending 12 passenger trains a day through the town. But it wasn't just the B&O or the Penn Central at nearby Galatea that contributed to North Baltimore's railroad legacy. There was also the Toledo, Bowling Green, and Southern Electric interurban line. It came through North Baltimore in 1902, and before it died in 1930, killed by good roads and automobiles, it ran as many as 15 trips a day through town. Nowadays, the trains in North Baltimore run mostly on the memories of the townspeople. Poet Frederick Ekman recalls a life inseparable from the railroad.
A locomotive glides between the flat fields of snow from Fort Wayne to Bellevue. The sky is dull gray. Somewhere in the teetering line of boxcars, a brakeman clings to an iron ladder with frozen fingers and toes. Smoke plumes up, then back, then finally disappears over the tundra between Continental and Fostoria. Sometimes on winter evenings, it seems to me that all my life has happened near the railroad. If this flesh were not so substantial, I'd think I were a character in some forgotten novel about Siberia. Do you see me there, muffled in black darkness, looking for a train? Do you see me there? Or the kerosene lantern swings in the depot door? Are you the beautiful daughter of a Siberian brakeman, ironing your blouse while I ride by in the Ohio night?
Or might it be the ghost of Bassett L. Peters, staring at the trains that sewed together the town he gave almost everything but its name? Peters was to North Baltimore what Ben Franklin was to colonial America. As early as 1853, 23 years before the town was incorporated, Peters was settled in the area and starting a family. But it took the infant community to summon up his best efforts. To begin with, he owned much of the land the town was built on. He built the first school and became its first teacher. He helped found the first church and was its first Sunday school superintendent. He co-founded the first newspaper. He ran a grocery store and acted as an insurance agent. Peters was also on the original board of directors of North Baltimore's first national bank. His grocery store was the B&O Railroad's first ticket office and waiting room, and he was foreman of the first fire department. Have we forgotten anything? Oh yes, he was North Baltimore's first mayor. The surviving pictures of Peters show him to have the usual number of arms and legs, a head not remarkable in size. He just made better use of them than most of us do. If Peters had a rival for civic industry, it was Dr. A.G. Henry, physician and surgeon by profession, showman by some internal necessity. Henry is best remembered for his opera houses. He built the first in 1888, saw it burn in 1894, and immediately built another. An admirer describes the second one in these words.
We have an opera house of which we may feel proud. Its seating capacity is 1,000, containing the latest improved opera chairs throughout. The stage is very large, enabling the largest companies to use it. The interior is frescoed in a beautiful manner, heated by steam and lighted with electricity. In fact, being a modern playhouse equal to any in the country.
It was a fine theater, indeed, and a fitting stage for such a performer as John Philip Sousa, the March King, who was one of the many luminaries attracted by North Baltimore's congeniality to the arts. But what is a theater without bright lights? Not to worry, Dr. Henry had that covered too. By 1890, he had constructed North Baltimore's first electric power plant. The coal-fueled operation was named the North Baltimore Light and Power Company. And just as the Opera House was alleged to be one of the area's finest, the power company had the early reputation of being the best in Ohio. The second Henry Opera House was thus brilliantly lighted by the Henry Electric Company, heated by Henry gas wells. The power company was located where the B&N carryout now stands, and the new Opera House stood here, on the site of the Copenhofer Garage. Oil. Was there ever so much of it before? From the mid-1880s until just after the turn of the century, North Baltimore rode high on a sea of oil. It meant sudden wealth and vulgar wealth. It meant a heightening of the village's already conspicuous frontier spirit. It gave room and reason to experiment, as Dr. Henry did. The first real gusher came in on the Day Fulton Farm, at what is now the intersection of Mitchell and Oil Center Roads. The drillers had sunk a hole over 1,100 feet and found nothing. Then, a Mr. C. Ash, who directed the drilling, tells how the new age gushed in.
We were losing hope every minute, and Monday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we heard a noise in the well, which began to fill. We stopped the drill and were hardly out of the way when the oil spouted up over the derrick and 86 feet into the air. We quickly put out the fire under the boiler and withdrew from the field. The flow was so continuous that we were not able to get our tools out until Thursday.
A reporter who visited the well said that a wagon path nearby was nearly a foot deep in oil. For years, oil was to be the biggest single factor in the town's economy and makeup. Then, around 1905, oil production tapered off, and the wildcatters and speculators turned their attention to new fields in Pennsylvania. In their wake, they left a string of fine homes, new fortunes, and the knowledge that sudden wealth can be as unsettling as sudden adversity. With the oil below and the rails above, it's easy for a ransacker of North Baltimore's history to forget about the rich land that surrounded and fed the town, as providentially then as it does now. Carl Sandburg, though, knew that the green fields were the homes of miracles.
The wind came across the corn laughing. It was late in summer, the limit of summer, the deadline of early fall time, and the wind in the laughing corn. The wind came across. The wind ran on the tops of the corn tassels, and the pointed long leaves hung over, hands obedient to the wind. And the wind ran once and again for each leaf, each pointed long leaf. The wind sang running across the corn tassels and leaves of corn. There is a floor the corn grows on. The roots of the corn go under and twist and hold. The trunk of the corn stands over the floor. The leaf and the corn tassel signal our winds and take notice of the path of the sun. The ears laugh in the husks now. The big job of the year is done. It's all over again till next year. Out of the maroon silk and fading greens, up over the wandering pumpkin stems, the yellow and gold kernels laugh. The big job is over, and the laugh of the yellow ears and the laugh of the running wind go together. They come across together now, late in summer, early in the fall time of the corn tassels.
North Baltimore's face has been scarred time and again by fire. Horribly so in 1885, 1888, 1891, 1894, and 1911. Badly in a dozen other years. Builders joined with the rebuilders to mend the face and to brighten its features. So it's difficult to tell what the young North Baltimore looked like. But a clear memory, focused by affection, can see past walls where the camera's eye stops. And there are many such memories in North Baltimore. People to whom the town is more a way of life than just a place to live. One of these, Melvin Fleckner, adopted the town as his home in 1913, when he moved here with his family. He was in the second grade then, a ripe young age for noticing large beauties in small things. Through his eyes, the layers of the town peel away. Here, at the site of Kelly Motor Sales, Fleckner recalls, was once a Chinese laundry, housed in a frame building and operated by a Mr. Shung Lee. And across the street, the American Legion occupies the building where T.A. Robinson had his cigar factory, and where his crew of 12 to 15 women patiently rolled and packed Don Marano and Cannonball stogies. Fleckner says that the cleanliness of the factory was a local legend. This alley has been of greater delight to children than any other thoroughfare in town. Nowadays, it leads to the sweetness of the Daily Queen. But Melvin Fleckner remembers when Johnny Baker's novelty store was here. It was the town's penny candy connection, a place on every child's way to and from school. The Bakers, Fleckner recalls, knew how to make kids feel important. Adult tastes were catered to farther up Main Street near the railroad tracks at Emil Miller's restaurant. The Millers operated it through the oil boom days. They were followed in ownership by the Cooters, the Greens, the Wolfs, the Benedicts, and the Lloyds, the restaurant's present proprietors. Stouffer's hardware store used to be here. Like so many other North Baltimore businesses, the original Stouffer's was destroyed by fire in 1911. Fleckner recalls that Will Stouffer was an honest businessman who wanted his customers to be honest too. If a customer of doubtful credit rating came into the store to buy something, Fleckner says, Stouffer would wave frantically to one of his clerks and shout, "GTM, Mrs. D, GTM." That meant, get the money. Across Broadway, on North Main, is the site of the first school in North Baltimore. The original building, after its replacement by another school, was moved to Margaret Avenue and West Walnut Street, where it still stands today. Here's the spot where Marshal J. Davis was shot to death in 1932. The killing occurred directly across the street from the house where the recently married Melvin Fleckner and his wife, May, had taken up residence. Marshal Davis had cornered the Story brothers, who had left a trail of abductions and robberies from Toledo to Van Buren. In the gunfight, Davis shot one of the brothers, but the other one killed him. It was the second time in the town's mostly serene history that a lawman was killed in the line of duty. The first victim was Jesse Baker, shot and killed by post office burglars in 1896. The present Masonic building, north of the city building, was once the home of Columbia Drugs and the Pretty Music Store. Then it was used by Fleckner's uncle, John Wilt, for his EMF sales and service garage. The EMF automobile later became known as the Studebaker. The school administration office is now in the George Smith residence of many years ago. Mr. Smith could repair almost anything, especially children's toys. He was also a fine musician, we hear. Every building, every vacant lot, every fading sign has a story for the town's historians to give voice to. But what can North Baltimore expect from a century which has been so harsh to its small towns? Melvin Fleckner, who has recorded so much of what has been, assesses what will be. There's no doubt that things have slipped in the last 20 years, business at least. That's been because of the automobiles. It's just the way we live. But I'll say the town will always be progressive. The government's good. The schools are good. The churches don't bicker with each other. I think we'll always have a town here. The tracks that brought North Baltimore to life are slowly being obliterated by time and disuse. But the tracks that keep it alive are straight and shining in the townspeople's minds.